Researchers in the field of ufology have been collecting reports surrounding unidentified flying objects, and this has spanned over the past several centuries, and they found a strange connection between numerous appearances of unidentified craft and the appearance of a fine thread-like material referred to as angel hair. For reasons not entirely understood, there appears to be a cotton-like or thread-like material that's deposited from moving extraterrestrial aircrafts that disintegrates when touched or slowly turns into a jelly-like substance over time. Oddly enough, researchers are not the only people interested in studying the angel hair phenomenon. According to published Air Force files back in 1963, there appears to be evidence that the United States Air Force conducted immediate investigations of all angel hair reports within the United States and allied countries long before UFO researchers were ever made aware of the materials connected to unidentified flying objects. Their research, however, included more than just the gathering of angel hair materials for testing, and providing written eyewitness reports for Project Saucer and Project Blue Book. For reasons not entirely understood, the United States Air Force seemed to have engaged in active cover-up of the angel hair events, and suppress evidence from getting into the hands of third-party analysis. One of the first reported angel hair sightings of the United States occurred on the 22nd of October back in 1954, outside a small school in Marysville. Although angel hair reports had begun occurring in the French countryside for some years by this point, the Marysville angel hair sightings would be the first sighting reported across the Americas, and so would be immediately investigated by the United States Air Force within several days of its reporting. According to United States Air Force files, during an afternoon recess, the students of Jerome Elementary School claimed to have seen an incredibly shiny object that hovered in the sky, and that moved at incredible speeds. After an unknown period of time, the children claimed that the object suddenly disappeared and was nowhere to be seen. At around the same time that the object disappeared, students and teachers watched as white cotton-like tufts of material began to slowly float down to the ground and the nearby areas. The unknown thread-like material continued to fall for an estimated 45 minutes, following the disappearance of the shiny unidentified flying object, and caught the attention of the teachers who were worried as to what the material could have been, after hearing the collective UFO accounts of the students playing during recess. According to the teachers and some of the braver students who had picked up the material, the thread-like white material was made up of long strands, which were described as being very fine and soft and could be stretched and rolled into tiny spheres in their palms. After being touched and manipulated, however, the material would soon disappear and leave behind a green stain on the hands of those who touched it. The angel hair was reported to have been dispersed in a 3-mile radius surrounding the Marysville Jerome Elementary School, and was described as being similar to that of a thin blanket covering the road. The following is a statement taken directly from Air Force files made available in the scientific examination publication, The World of Flying Saucers. A fall of angel hair occurred in the United States on October 22, 1954, near a school in Marysville. At afternoon recess, the pupils of Jerome Elementary School noticed a dazzling bright object in the sky. It disappeared, and for the next 45 minutes both children and teachers watched white cotton-like tufts floating slowly down to the ground. The material was in long strands, very fine and soft, could be stretched and rolled into tiny balls, but quickly vanished to nothing and left a green stain on their hands. The stuff clung to grass and cars, draped telephone wires for a distance of 3 miles, and was like a misty canopy over the road. Oddly enough, despite an immediate reaction from the United States Air Force to investigate the incident, official reports would claim that none of the angel hair material had been preserved or sent in for analysis, or that the material had disintegrated before Air Force investigators could retrieve a sample. The Air Force investigations would later debunk the mysterious nature of the Marysville incident in 1963, more than 9 years after the event had taken place, by claiming that the angel hair material was nothing more than typical gossamer seen from migrating spiders. The following statement is a direct quote from the official Air Force explanation of the event. Unfortunately, none of the material was preserved and no analysis was possible. Marysville is near Columbus, an industrial center, and the stuff might have been waste products from one of the nearby factories. Since similar falls were reported in Indiana during the same period, the substance was most probably gossamer. As in the French incident, the time was late October and the weather was perfect, a warm autumn day with sunny, cloudless skies. Both the time and the weather were ideal for migrating spiders to take to the air, float down to earth on their puffy parachutes, and then discard the no longer necessary gossamer. The most peculiar facet of this explanation, however, is that it's completely erroneous and nearly entirely fabricated. The first major issue with the typical gossamer explanation is that spiders do not migrate in large groups. Typically, spiders are isolationist creatures and prefer to live in territorial and solitary lives. Migrating in large groups is incredibly rare and is typically done only during a population explosion caused by factors not typical of their environment, such as large wildfires forcing them out of their location, or an overabundance of food that cause a population growth, which is usually only done when large amounts of food waste are left in dumping areas. Neither of these events were reported to have happened prior to this moment in October 1954. The second major issue is that spiders require warm wind conditions with a very slow and stable wind speed, less than 3 knots. During October back in 1954, the month of the sighting, Hurricane Hazel had been traveling across the east coast and into eastern Ohio, leaving behind major flooding and undesirable wind conditions. On the 11th of October, an EF1 tornado touched down several miles outside of Marysville. Below is a quote from the Meteorological Report of 1954. Summary of floods in the United States during 1954. Between October 15th, 18th and 19th in the eastern states, floods which followed Hurricane Hazel were severe in bands of about 100 miles, extending from North Carolina through western New York and eastern Ohio. At least 93 lives were lost and damages were estimated to have been $250 million. This summary also describes 22 minor floods which occurred in scattered areas, and this was throughout the United States. According to official meteorological reports and severe damage, Hurricane Hazel was the deadliest, second costliest, and most intense hurricane of the 1954 Atlantic hurricane season. Its effects were witnessed firsthand between the 15th of October to the 19th of October, with cold fronts lasting well past October. According to Air Force explanations, there is no possible way that a migration of spiders could have taken place, given the known data and the recently learned experiments involving spider migration in the modern day, making the entire explanation surrounding the weather conditions being ideal for spider migration a complete fabrication, which was published 9 years following the event, in the hopes that citizens would be unwilling to look into the weather conditions any further. The third major issue with the explanation is that neither the children nor the teachers saw spiders mixed in with the thread-like material. Given their eyewitness statements, claiming to have immediately picked up the material and played with it, there were no reported sightings of spiders or baby spiders within the material. Provided the fact that such a large amount of material would have required a mass migration far exceeding several hundred spiders, the lack of mention of any spiders seemed entirely anomalous to the spider migration claims. Despite the overwhelming evidence against the official Air Force reports and claims, the United States Air Force still holds the official declaration that the material was most definitely spider gossamer, and that the effects of Hurricane Hazel did not exist in the area, and that the weather was considered a warm and pleasant day. So what do you guys make of this? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below. and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.